Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We have the man behind the curtain in the county. He's in the house. Welcome to Wayne Strausburg. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
So you are the county administrative director.
Director of Administration.
Director of Administration. Not everyone knows you. You're kind of a public face, but you are the man behind the scenes who I think runs the county. The county directors, the department heads report to you first.
Correct.
You prepare the budget every year.
Correct.
And you provide all the information to the county executive, who is ultimately the executive of the county.
Correct.
And you also work closely with the county council. So it's a very delicate position you have, and I really enjoy watching you work in this position.
I think there are some nuances to that. I wouldn't say, I think it's an overstatement to say that I run the county. Really, the county executive and the county council are the electeds, and they steer the county. My job is to see that our departments operate in conformity with the executive's wishes and the council's directives. So,
and you were the first ever in a role like yours. We had a county administrator for a long time who answered to the county council,
correct.
But you were the first under the county executive form of government.
I cannot remember whether Ted Shea. I think Ted Shea
for a while, yeah, when
stayed
Rick
on
Pollitt
for a while
first started,
after
yeah.
the election, after the first election, yes.
But if you could argue he was sort of doing his old job in a new kind of role.
Yeah, it was a job that really, after that first election, really had to be shaped because, as you said, no one had really done that job before. So, in some respects, the county was finding its way to define what that job really should entail, and to some extent, I think we still are. And organizations are organic, and this job is organic, and it will change over time as the county needs to change.
Now, you sort of star this time of year every year in the press because the budget comes out under your direction.
Correct.
And we've got a very interesting budget this year. The spending is actually down a little bit from last year.
Yeah, our spending's down close to $3 million versus last year's spending. That's principally because we've done the best we could to minimize the utilization of fund balance. And we're doing that because we see some warning signs in the overall economy and the fiscal landscape. So we have been very cautious in terms of what our outlook is for the finances of the county as we enter the next 12 to 18 months, which are, I believe, going to be very fluid.
I want to come back and hit on that, but in terms of the big headline from the budget this year, the county executive funded the complete school board request for operating funds for the first time that I can remember.
The first time in my memory.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's a big deal.
We think it is, and we think it's quite appropriate.
What happened to make it appropriate this time as opposed to previous years?
We have strived, the Board of Education, Donna Hanlon in particular, and the executive have strived to communicate on a regular basis, to share our ideas with one another, to share our concerns with one another. And I think anytime you have active communication between people who are operating in good faith, and I believe both the executive and the Board of Education, superintendent are acting in good faith, I think that leads you to better conclusions and much better decisions. So it's been the tenor, if you will, between the Board of Education and the county executive's office over the time that I've been here has improved dramatically with Donna coming into the position that she's in. and it's a good collaborative process. We can't satisfy one another's every wish, but I think we are striving to do the best we can on both sides of the equation.
And one of the things I have to admit that I was oblivious to, that you've helped me learn and understand, is how the bond market works in terms of the county's bond status and
Correct.
how much money we borrow every year, and the whole issue of reserves. And I think probably the biggest criticism, not criticism, but complaint you get is, why are we saving so much money all the time? Why can't we invest this money back into our county? Talk to me about that, about how the bond markets work, how our standing in Wall Street really does matter in terms of what we pay ultimately for things.
There are two, when you go to Wall Street, the credit rating agencies are looking really at two things. First of all, credit rating agencies don't like restrictions on revenue.
And we have a revenue cap.
And we have a revenue cap. I don't think it's any secret that credit rating agencies, like a bank, don't like your income being restricted.
Right.
So that, on one side, that is something that I think precludes us from having a higher rating, although we have a very high rating. On the other side, the street is very, very comfortable that we have an adequate fund balance. The street, frankly, doesn't believe that we have too high a fund balance, but they think that we have a very adequate fund balance.
Because they need to be paid back first.
To put it into context, if it were your household, the county needs about $10 million a month to operate. So we have in our unassigned fund balance about $30 million right now. We've got another 10 that's assigned in rainy day. But if I said to you, would you be comfortable with enough money in your savings account to cover your household expenses for 3 months if something extraordinary happened, you lost your job, anything of that type, would you be comfortable? I certainly wouldn't be, and I think putting it into that context, understanding that what the county has in reserves can carry the county through very difficult times like we experienced when we dropped off a cliff with the Great Recession.
Right, and you came into the job right at that time.
Came into the job right at that
Yeah,
point
what a great time to show up.
It was, well, you know.
Right when a recession, it was just about to crest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't drafted. I volunteered, and quite frankly, I found it interesting and found it challenging, and I've enjoyed it. I enjoy my work. I really do.
Those were tough times, though. There were there were furloughs.
There were.
The state still cut road funding. That's never come back.
The state, I use the term conscripted. The state officials probably don't like that term, but that's what they did. The state, we were getting to the tune of about $8.5 million a year in highway user revenue, and that funded the entire highway department. So our roads were fully funded by the gasoline tax.
Right.
The state cut that by 90%. So we went from about $8.5 million down to about $800,000. And we had to find that money someplace. You recall that the Board of Education's budget took quite a hit in that first year because we lost that highway user revenue. We had to have revenue that would cover maintenance of our roads, had to come from someplace. And we had quite an interesting negotiation with the state with regard to how we would address the reduction in our funding to the Board of Education, because maintenance of effort was in place. And what we did,
and just so people know, the maintenance of effort is the number through a complicated formula that each county has to spend on education
per student.
So it's committing it's fulfilling its commitment to education.
It's really, to put it in layman's term, there's a moving average, and each county is required to fund per student at the state average.
Right.
So when you have very poor rural counties versus very wealthy counties like Montgomery County, even average for a rural county of modest wealth can be a stretch. But what we did, the negotiation led to the legislature agreed that if we moved our local income tax to the maximum 3.2%, that they would essentially forgive that backlog, if you will, in maintenance of effort and reset maintenance of effort where it was. So,
And even that was difficult because you've got
And that
Worcester
was-
County next door, which
correct.
charges half of that.
Yeah, we are at, it's very interesting. We are, in many respects, we're the commerce and professional educational center for a 4-county area. And you can see that by traffic counts on Route 50 and Route 13. You can look at the traffic in the morning, coming in 13 from the north, coming across 50 from the east. Much lower taxation in both Sussex County and Worcester County, and a much higher wealth base. Worcester County, and the wealth index is a complicated formula as well, but Worcester County is currently per capita the wealthiest county in the state. So we're approximate 5 miles away from the Worcester County border. Their income tax rate is marginally about 60% of our income tax rate. Their property tax rates are lower than our property tax rate. So if you're a high income earner, it's very attractive to live in Worcester County or Sussex County, but earn your living, if you will,
Right.
in Wicomico
Right.
County. That's a dynamic that I don't know how you change that other than building our wealth here in Wicomico County. We are, our marginal income tax rate is as high as is allowed in the state. Our property tax rate is the average, a little bit above the average of all rural counties. So this year we're going to be 93.5 cents, I think, per hundred. And that's about the average for the rural counties in the state. The issue is also that about 40% of our population live in jurisdictions that also tax. So we've got about 40% of our population in the county that is paying really
Double taxes.
twice.
Yeah.
And that's certainly an issue that's been discussed for decades, but that's an issue. So when you talk about raising revenue, I think the last place you can really go is increasing taxation, because I think we're already a fairly high taxed area, all things considered. I think the answer in terms of building revenue is to build our wealth. And to build our wealth, my answer to that is there are really several areas that we could focus on. We're focusing on the airport because it's a critically underutilized asset that can and should be developed. We've got a great dynamic
A
airport
potential
manager.
economic jewel. There's all kinds of things that could be going on there.
Absolutely. So we're running sewer to the campus now. We have water. So in about 12 months, we would be positioned to really develop that airport to the type of economic campus that it could be. The other thing that I think we need to focus on is development of the designated growth area. And to do that, you need water and sewer. A couple of ways of going about that. We have water and sewer capacity proximate to the designated growth area.
And that's something a lot of people don't know, is how our zoning works in the county.
Correct.
We have areas that we want to grow and areas
Correct.
that we want to preserve.
Correct.
So it's up to the government to encourage development in the areas where we want to grow.
Correct. So we've struck that balance in the comprehensive plan because we want to, in many respects, retain the rural character of the county. That's critically important. That's a legacy here. But at the same time, we are the commerce center for a 4-county area, and you want to develop that to the extent that you can. So we've designated, if you will, a circle around the jurisdictions that have water and sewer capability, concentrating our development there. The issue that we have is that we have to extend water and sewer lines to that designated growth area. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can develop your own water and sewer system, and we recently awarded a contract to George Miles and Burr to do a study on on water sewer, because not only do we want to see those designated growth areas developed as they should be, but we have areas of the county with failing septic now, and we want to maintain those residents. We want to keep those folks in their homes, and the only way to do that is with public water and sewer. You can't do it with septic any longer. So I think the long-term answer is to accommodate development in those areas that we have agreed as a community should be developed. And I think that's critically important. I don't think there's much that's more important than that, than also supporting education, because one of the things that we should be doing, certainly, and it's part of the reason that we've underwritten the Board of Education's request for this year, and the reason that we created the scholarship fund at Warwick, was, we believe that our young people deserve the best education that we can provide them. And also, we need to have that education focused in areas where they can have gainful employment after graduation from high school, a 2-year college or 4-year college, and provide employment here so that they can stay here, so that we can keep our youthful talent in place in this community, so that they don't have to go to some other part of the state or some other part of the country to earn a good living. We ought to be able to provide that here.
And I think we're more successful in that than even Worcester County, because there are jobs here for people once they graduate, as opposed to pretty much just service sector jobs in another county.
Correct.
When I look at your budget every year, expenses go up and down. Generally, they go up. One of the things the state did is they dumped the teachers' pensions on you guys.
Mm-hmm. Half the teachers' pension.
Yeah, so that was certainly a blow. But anyway, your expenses are constantly going up, and the revenues kind of stay kind of the same. I don't know that we've really rebounded from the recession in terms of property values. So what are you doing to look for new sources of revenue?
Well,
or what can be done?
Yeah, let me back up on that. About 90% of the county's total revenue comes from property taxes and local income taxes. We've seen a very, very nice increase over the past several years as we rebounded from the recession in our income taxes. You have to bear in mind that income tax distributions from the state lag by about 16 to 18 months. So you're looking in the rearview mirror. We hit our employment high point back in July, August of 2017. We got up to 50-some thousand jobs, low 50s. We've settled back in right now at a run rate of about 48,000 jobs. So when you're looking forward and anticipating what your revenue is going to be in the future years, we're anticipating a leveling out of that growth, and you're going to see that in this year's budget. We budgeted $52.5 million in 19. I think we'll probably hit that, looking at the distributions we've got, and we've budgeted $52.2 million for this coming year because of that trailing average and the fact that we've seen employment leveling out. The latest triennial saw about a 6% increase in the property base. But you have to remember that 6% increase in the property base is going to be limited in terms of the revenue that can be derived because we have a 2% revenue cap. You get the benefit of the new construction in the first year. So to the extent that you have a lot of new construction, your property revenues will be increasing. But when that levels out, which we anticipate it is going to level out, we see it leveling out, you're going to be in stasis, if you will, at 2%. Historic rate of inflation in this country until this last decade, which is really an anomaly, the historic rate of inflation up to that point in time had been about 4.5%. It went crazy, as you know, in the 70s, but about 4.5% is a normal rate of inflation. So when a significant part of your revenue is coming from property taxes that are limited at 2% increment, looking at a stabilized workforce, if you will, at the highest marginal rate that you can charge, I circle back again to, okay, the way for us to produce increased revenue is to grow our base. And to grow our base, I come back to, we need water and sewer capability. Water and sewer is not inexpensive. The infrastructure is expensive. So to the extent that we have it in place already, to the extent that we can make the best utilization of that capacity, we're smart because you're covering your fixed costs. And I think it's a win-win. We need to sit and have serious discussions about that with the municipalities, but I think it can be structured as a win-win for the municipality, for the community. I try not to use the term city, county. I try to talk in terms of community because one hand washes the other. The city, obviously critically important from an employment commercial standpoint, but the rural character of this county is also what attracts a lot of people to live here and to enjoy living here. So, I look at it and say we have the best of both worlds. You can live what I call out in the country, but still have access to all the amenities that you need here in Del Mar, Salisbury, and Fruitland.
When I go around, because the first time I ever interviewed Bob Culver after he was elected, he sort of telegraphed that you were going to retire soon and he was going to have to replace you. And it's been, what, 5, 6 years since that happened.
Yeah, I'm in my 5th year with Bob.
So I would go around and I would encounter people and I would try to think who would make a good replacement for Wayne. Fortunately, that's never been an issue. But it just amazes me that you stepped up when you did to take on the role that you did, and that you get all this. You don't play politics city against county, that we're all a big group. You understand the economic development angles. I just feel like we've been very fortunate to have you at the time that we did.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll come back to, I really enjoy what I do. I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. Majored in finance, have an MBA, so.
Right, and I want to talk about your background, because I knew you from English's Restaurants for years.
Yeah, and English's Restaurants.
And you wouldn't think the guy who's running English's is going to run the county, even though you say you don't run the county.
Well, the inside story there is that the English company, the English's Restaurants, that company, the English company, was purchased by a Baltimore-based firm that at one point in time was a Fortune 500 firm, Fairlanes Incorporated.
Right.
And I was employed by Fairlanes Incorporated. I started in the finance area, progressed into being the director of real estate and development, and eventually became that company's president. We owned the English company, and when Fairlane's founder died, the company was broken up into its component parts. We had a significant real estate development company, BTR Realty, which later became one of the largest REITs in the country. So we spun that out. We had the English company. We had the bowling centers. We owned the Arundel Ice Cream Company. So we were a very diverse company with our fingers in a lot of different pies. And being inside that company and being involved in the various operations over the years, you learn a lot. You really are exposed to a lot of different businesses, spent a lot of time on Wall Street. So I was fortunate to be hired by that company in the right place at the right time, mentored by some excellent people. And so the combination of that experience and my education in finance has put me in good stead, and I feel very, very, very fortunate. My father worked at the Bethlehem Steel Company. I grew up in eastern Baltimore County, and my father worked at Bethlehem Steel for 36 years. and very, very dangerous place to work. And they had an open house there one time. So I went with my oldest son at the time to the open house at Bethlehem Steel. And my father took me into the steel mill that he worked in. And I watched that process. And we came back out, you know, did a tour of the whole facility, which was huge. We got in the car.
It was the largest steel plant in the world at one time.
Largest steel plant in the world at one point in time. So we got back in the car. I'll never forget this. So my father looked over at me and he said, "Well, what did you think?" And I looked at him and I said, "What I think is, I don't know how you did that for 36 years. I wouldn't have lasted 36 minutes."
Yeah.
And he said, "Son, had to make a living."
Yeah.
So you know, you look, you know, you grow up in a very modest household, in a very modest community, but with very supportive people around you. I got an excellent education, public education in Baltimore County, went on to Loyola College, got an excellent education there. I just really feel very fortunate. So and I like challenges. I really like challenge. I like problem solving. I like numbers, but I also like people. I really enjoy the relationships that you develop with people. And you know, again, I look back at it. You know, I look at my career now, and I'm certainly at the age where some people, particularly my wife, think I should retire. And you look back at it, and I have no regrets. And I feel very fortunate being able to feel that way. It really is.
He's Wayne Strausburg. He's our Director of Administration for Wycombe County Government. He's the man behind the curtain, I think, and I really admire the work he does every day. Thanks for caring so much about our county.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Greg.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.